welcome. Welcome to the show. We skipped last week, and last week was a wild week, especially with March Madness and everything else. But 2 weeks ago, anybody that tuned in, we gave out a lot of winners with the outlook going into the March Madness tournament. I called out the Ohio State upset with Oral Roberts. I didn't think that I would be personally embarrassed as an Ohio State fan and that would be an actual loss, but I flat out said bet against Ohio State and take the points if you're looking at that game and that's one that you want to invest in. I also called out Houston, saying that I believed Houston was going to win the whole tournament. I'm gonna talk out of the other side of my mouth here in a few minutes with that Houston play, but we're gonna run through some March Madness. We're going to talk a little NBA, not too far, and then I'm going to talk about some discoveries I made in the NHL. And that should be it. Hopefully this reaches some people before we get to actually playing this weekend. Oh, there's some people joining us. Cool. So we'll go March Madness first. I will say, looking backwards, there were a lot of winners, and I called out Houston to win the whole thing. So I'm not really surprised that they're in the Final Four. These games that are coming up this weekend, you look at them on paper and just not knowing much about the game, because there's a lot of casual people, a lot of casual interest going on with March Madness. But if you just look at it, you would think that Gonzaga is just going to blow UCLA away. You probably think Baylor's just going to blow Houston off the court, and I'm not advocating opposite that. I'm not here to be contrarian, but what I will say is just an interesting one. Gonzaga is the highest percentage shooting team out of anybody in the tournament, while UCLA is the lowest percentage defense. So teams that are shooting against UCLA in their run from where they came from, teams are having the lowest shooting percentage going against them. So I'm not calling upset. I'm not saying that UCLA beats Gonzaga. I'm just saying that's one to consider. That's a statistic to look at in that game. Gonzaga can pretty much do whatever they want with anybody, especially after watching what they just did to USC. Last weekend, I called out USC at -2 when they were going into that Oregon game. And there was just absolutely no way that Oregon was going to even be within 10 of them. But looking at what Gonzaga just did to USC, USC has 3 players that are going to have pretty good, sustainable careers in the NBA. And Gonzaga just completely manhandled them. But I bring up USC because I didn't think much of the Pac-12 going into the tournament. But when you look at UCLA now, who finds themselves the only Pac-12 team in the Final Four, look at who UCLA had to play this year. UCLA had to play Oregon. That's a team that we just saw play this past weekend in the Elite Eight. They had to play up against USC, who was fantastic. They had to play against the Pac-12 champion, which was Oregon State. So that's where UCLA is coming from. So there's a lot of points in that game. Again, I don't think anybody here is going to make a living betting against Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga, they look like they would compete with some NBA teams, but at the same time, I wouldn't get too carried away laying those points. I'm not comfortable laying that large of points. I think that's a game you let it get started. It's 14 points. Nobody's beating UCLA by 14 points. Gonzaga is the only team I believe that is capable of it. But you go back and look at some of these UCLA games and who they played throughout the regular season. They beat Colorado. Everybody forgets Colorado was a really good team that a lot of people had going deep into this tournament in the early rounds. They beat Colorado. They also they beat Oregon State, who eventually won the Pac-12. They got blown away by USC during the regular season, and then they got beat. They got beat against Oregon. And then they played USC again, and it was a 64-63 game. So this is not. They took Oregon State to overtime. They beat number 1 Michigan. They beat number 2 Bama. So you look at UCLA, and the 14 points just seems like too many. My play here, because Gonzaga is going to win the game. I realize I'm building a bear case against Gonzaga, but Gonzaga's going to win the game. But my play the entire tournament, the easiest move is watch the game, keep your fingers crossed, hope that UCLA scores the first basket. UCLA scores the first basket, you no longer have to lay 14 points. UCLA scores the first basket, you probably be laying 11. And I won't lay the 11. I'll go to the first half. The first half, you'll probably be laying 5.5. So that's been my go-to basketball. Like that's the rhythm that I've been on. So you hope that UCLA scores first, whether it's a 2 or a 3. If it's a 3, that's even better. Then you're laying 5.5 for the first half, taking Gonzaga. And then when that cashes, so we'll just go to the $10. We love $10 around here. You lay your $10 on Gonzaga first half. Let that cash for you. You got to get that first cash. When that cashes, you're going to take half the profit from that. You're not going to take half the total. You're going to take half the profit. So at a minus 105, you're probably looking at $9.40, something like that. And I know everybody's betting with different dollar amounts, but $10 just it's a mathable number. So you get your 950 back. You're going to place 475 on the very next wager, something in the second half that's attractive. If Gonzaga is up big 10, 12 in the first half, chances are they're going to run it up in the second half. That's been a great go-to for Gonzaga. With Gonzaga, you can in most teams that are up big in the second half, what happens with these spreads is they end up being minus points for the underdog. So if Gonzaga's ahead 10 or 11, you're going to end up seeing a game where Gonzaga might be +2, +3 in the first half or in the second half. And again, I say if, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm trying to lay out a strategy for how to approach this game, because once you get it going and watch, you're going to have live action. If Gonzaga's up by 10 at the end of the first half, or 12, or whatever they're up at the end of the first half, they're going to keep going. They figured something out. They're not going to let up. They're going to keep it going. But if UCLA gets up early and it looks like Gonzaga is slowing down, this game might be a walk away, or you might catch a huge discount on Gonzaga. But going into the game up front, like today, if I was going to lay action on this game or not, I would just walk away from the game, because 14 points, I just don't like it. And again, Gonzaga can win by 30, but 14 points, it's just too many. It's like it's just one of those red flags for me, like many of you would see when you were looking at your charts and buying some calls or buying stocks or what have you. So that's where I sit with that game. The other one I'm going to throw out there is really that UCLA has a little bit to do with it. The Pac-12 is 12-2 against the spread in this entire tournament. 12-2. And what's really funny is the gentleman, Second Half Chaz, that we do the Sports Betting Weekly show with, he, on one of the recordings going into the tournament, he said that the Pac-12 stinks. The Pac-12 is awful. They're terrible. And when the Pac-12 ended up with 4 teams in the Sweet 16, he actually sent an apology letter, like physically typed out an apology letter to the commissioner of the Pac-12 and sent it out. And it was hilarious that he went through that. And we very quickly found out that the Pac-12 is good. So I'm done talking about that Gonzaga game. The Houston-Baylor game, this is where I'm at with that one. Houston coming off of 4 days. Houston coming off of 4 or 5 days to prepare for a game. That's a dangerous thing. The only negative I see with Houston is they've had a very low shooting percentage versus in this tournament versus what they have had in the regular season. Houston is one of the best defenses in the country. They're like a top 3 defense. The only other piece to that really is that they come out of the American Athletic, and they're not really, they're not playing against these crazy teams that are difficult to defend against. But if you look at the road that Houston has had during this tournament, they've played against gritty, grind 'em teams. Like Houston is a team that averaged over 75, 80 points. I mean, Houston hung 98 points against a South Florida team earlier in March. I mean, Houston is not a stranger to 80 plus points, 90 points. They can score, but they played against these gritty, grind, ugly it up kind of teams. Baylor's not that kind of team. Baylor plays fast. Baylor averages like 3 shots per minute. I mean, they play really fast, and that's Houston's game. And Baylor playing fast like that could lead to some Houston turnovers. So I'm not fully convinced that Houston is going to win this tournament, only because I think that playing against Gonzaga is, I mean, nobody's going to beat them. I just don't think anybody's going to beat them. But this Baylor-Houston game, it's important to know that when you're looking at all these games, Elite Eight, Sweet 16, we've seen a lot of underdogs. We've seen a lot of underdogs, and in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, there was we saw dog favorite, dog favorite, dog favorite, and a lot of the times the dog and the points is the right way to go. Top to bottom, I think Houston's the better team. Baylor can pretty much do whatever they want. They had some COVID stuff happen during the season. 5 points. I don't really know about that, but I love getting points, especially in these basketball games. It's just a safer side to be on when you're getting points in games. Baylor has blown some teams out, but I think Baylor has also had a very easy road to where they are right now. Arkansas doesn't play great defense. This was the worst Villanova team we've seen in a long time, missing their star player. Wisconsin really didn't belong. So there's going to be a dog and there's going to be a favorite. And the way I'm playing these games, I'm taking the points in Houston. And I've already talked quite enough about what I'm looking at with this Gonzaga game. You know the approach. Houston in this entire tournament during the regular season, they were a cash register. I would bet on them first halves. That was a great, rather than laying points, I would take Houston over 33, over 32 in the first half, and they haven't shown up. They burned me on every single first half bet. I stopped doing it. I did the first 2 games, but Houston's not even going over 32 or over 33 in the first half. This game might be different because Baylor likes to play fast, and Houston is just, they're monsters on the board. They're going to end up with all kinds of extra chances because of how well they rebound and how fast Baylor plays. So Baylor is not gonna, they're not gonna make every shot, and Houston's gonna come down with a lot of those rebounds. So look at the first half and the over, because the way Houston's played in the tournament, I can't get it right now. I was looking at the number earlier and I just don't remember what it was. But that Houston first half over is going to end up being much lower than it would have been just because of their performance in this tournament. So I'll leave that there, and I'll also throw this out there. Anybody that wants to send me messages during the game, I will fire back until you tell me to stop. I'll send you live plays until you just can't handle it anymore. I put up a few of them in the past week on the general board for everybody to see. But for the most part, I'm struggling to find time to exist right now. My work is getting a little crazy. So, but if you send me the messages, I'm going to send you the plays. It's important that everybody gets fed. I'm going to go NHL. So unless anybody has anything, anybody got anything they want to ask or me to add with this March Madness? All right, I'm going to go NHL. I broke down the New York teams, and specifically Rangers, Islanders, because right now it's kind of a weird time with the NHL because we're getting ready to the playoffs. And anybody that was listening to these recordings back in September when we were NHL playoffs, I went like 8-4-1 for the NHL series, and that's how I play the NHL playoffs. Game to game is very difficult, and there's travel involved, and there's no goalie changes, but these teams figure each other out quick. So when we get into the playoffs, my plays are series plays, not game to game plays. And right now there's teams that are in it, there's teams that are not. The travel is taking a toll on them. Some of the coaching is really starting to show. But what I broke down with the Rangers and the Islanders is this. I'm looking at goals, overs, and unders for the game, which is a great play because you don't have to care about who wins or loses. You just have to care about some scores. So the Islanders are one of the leading teams in shutouts, in shutting the opponent out, allowing 0 goals in the entire league. They also, in the past month, I went back and I'm looking at the last 11 games that they were in. In their wins, they have held teams under. The game total has gone under. So game totals in hockey are either 5.5 or 6. Sometimes they'll be 6.5. But that's a meeting of 2 very high scoring teams with bad goalies. So looking at the Islanders in their last 11 games, they have gone under. The game total has gone under 8 out of 11 times. And the other three, the three where it actually went over, the Islanders lost. So if you believe that the Islanders are going to win on any given game, bet the under. Bet under 5.5. If it's 6, don't even think about who they're playing and bet the under. That was an interesting one because unders are not a popular bet. And actually, I'm going to circle back to unders in this tournament too. But Islanders under is typically a safe bet unless they're playing in a game where they have their second string goalie and they're coming off of like a series of games where it's been like 3 games in 5 nights or 3 games in 4 nights and they had to play last night and travel today. No teams have fared well in that shape, but Islanders and under is a pretty safe play. And at least it was an extremely safe play 8 out of 11 of the last 11 games. So then the other one I'm going to go is to the Rangers. This one is cool. So a typical team total is usually going to be 2.5. Some of the teams have been adjusted to, and you'll see the games at 3.5 if they're playing against a bad team. Typically the Sabres, that's one of those bad teams where everybody's is a 3.5 point team total. But looking at the Rangers, and again, I went back 14 games, and about 9 games ago they got Artemi Panarin back. Artemi Panarin it's very significant because he's a player that has a huge impact on these games. And since he's returned, they have gone over the standard 2.5 that would exist 3 times. They've gone over the 3.5, which again, that's adjusted when it's supposed to be a big game. They've gone over the 3.5 2 times, and then the 4.5. They went over the 4.5 5 times, and this is in the last 14 games. So they have 10 out of the last 14 going over the standard 2.5 in team total. The 4.5 comes in game. So if you're watching the Rangers or you're looking for hockey action, you're just casually flipping through your phone and you see that the Rangers have hung 2 goals early, chances are they're going to get you 4. And the chances are even bigger that they're going to get you 5 and they're going to go over the 4.5. And when you see a 4.5 pop up, that's a plus 170, plus 150. That's a bigger return for your $10. $10 returns your 10 plus 15 or plus 17 in situations like that. So the Rangers, there were 4 games. There were 4 games out of the last 14 that did not go over, and of those, 2 of them were losses. So very rarely, and where they actually won the game and it didn't go over, we're playing teams like Boston that don't really allow goals, power play, or anything else. So New York Rangers over is typically a safe bet. Just don't do it against a team like Boston or a team like Vegas, teams that are a team like Tampa that don't typically allow a lot of goals, and you got a safe bet there. I'm gonna circle back to the March Madness. And my standard approach to all these games is you let it get started. I mentioned under, which made me think of something with basketball. Before you watch any of the games, look at the line. Just look at CBS Sports, ESPN, whatever the line is, whatever app you're using. It makes no difference to me. I'm not here to advertise for these apps, but whatever one you look at when you look at your scores, they'll show you what the pregame over under was. Call it 148. We'll just use 148. It's a good example. These games get started. You got a crazy first half. The over-under for the second half, you're going to see a number that you're not going to see a game total anymore. The halftime line on Bovada usually is just its own, but it's usually a number that will take the math beyond what that original 148 was. You'll probably see a number that brings the original over-under to like 160, 165, something like that. You got to remember, and I preach this a lot, the odds makers are not wrong. They're not wrong very often, and when they are, they're not wrong in this crazy egregious fashion that allows us to just get rich. So if you see any over under for the second half, I would urge you to strongly look at the under. If it jumps 20%, the original game is 148 and you're looking at 165, 170, just do some math. If it means a team's got to score 90 points, quickly look at how many times that team has scored 90 points or how many times any team has scored 90 points in a college basketball. I made money off of going Gonzaga under 87.5 on their last game because they scored so much so fast, and the line just ran up, and the game over ran up, and it's like this has got to stop somewhere. They're blowing them out by 20. Somebody's going to stop trying here, and you jump on the under. So you hit the over, or you hit that. That's a good place to look for that second play. You get that full unit win, and then you put the half a unit on that second half play, possibly the under, and at that, and you can't lose. You absolutely cannot lose at that point. You won your full unit. You won your $9.50. You put $4.50 on something else, and if you win that, you're now up. I don't know. You're up somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.75 units in a matter of 3 hours. And the reason I say you don't go the full unit in is because you want to walk away a winner. Now, if you win that second play, that half unit bet, circle back to a full unit and start running it up, just the same way you would do on these debit spreads in the stock market. But you gotta get that first cash ticket, and then if you hit the second one for smaller money, then you can just start taking some risk. But don't ever give back that first win. My basketball approach is totally different than what I would do for football. You get the win, you put half back in, you get that win, you can go for a full again. So look at these unders when the lines start to elevate. It's just like I saw a lot of the conversation yesterday, and I read it way too late to do anything about it. But I saw a lot of conversation in the group about when it gets to 400, I'm buying puts. Well, that's exactly what you're doing when you're betting on the under. You just know it has to stop somewhere. So I think that's kind of my piece for the week. NHL playoffs is coming around the corner. I'm not happy with the NBA right now because there's a lot of players that are doing this load management. It's just the most bizarre thing, and I'm just, the NBA is not a safe place to stick money. The only plays I would advise on the NBA is there's wild swings. I mean, 12-point lead, take the dog and take the points. Because that gap's going to get closed. You're not seeing teams completely blow the other way. I mean, some of them are happening, but the safest play is look for a gap and buy the underdog and let them close the gap. And that's the only safe play in the NBA. But a lot of players are resting right now. You got LeBron injured, and just the landscape of the game is changing, and it's just not reliable. And I don't think the NBA is going to get reliable again until the playoffs start. And even then, the plays I'm going to be talking about are game overs or game unders. But NBA, I said this a few weeks ago. The gentleman that I do the Sports Betting Weekly show, his name is John with GMF Sports. Almost everything he says with the NBA, he does really well. There's another gentleman out there by the name of Mikey Betts. This guy is like 85%. He's on Twitter. And if you are a fan of the NBA and you're looking for action, I would recommend turning to these two guys. I'm not the right guy for NBA, and most of the time, if I'm sending you a message about the NBA, I got it from one of these guys because that's just, they're able to pick these games. But I'm not. If I'm in an NBA game, it's because I've had an incredibly great NC2A day or hockey day, and I'm just looking to keep that running, and it's a risk-free thing. So. If you guys want, I can post the names of those two guys to get in touch with. I know Mikey Betts charges membership. He puts free picks up. He charges a membership. So when I get plays from him, I'll share them with any of you that send me the message. I might message you back and just simply say I don't have any NBA plays. John texts me every day. I know what he's playing every single day. We share messages back and forth, so I can post some of those NBA plays in direct messaging if anybody wants them. And we're starting to get into baseball. In about 2 weeks, I'm going to have a lot of baseball plays. What else? I see my Jefes here. I haven't talked to you in a while. What's going on, bro? Hello?
I can see him talking, but I can't hear him.
Yeah, I can't see his face, but no, Jefe, I can't hear you. Well, I'm surely interested in what you got to say.
Yeah, it's weird. I can see his
Yeah,
little bubble making noise, but
yeah. Can you hear us? Yeah, he can hear us. Well, it looks like he logged off. He might be logging back in.
Hello, can you hear me?
oh yeah,
Yeah, I hear you
There we
now.
go. There we go. I think Chris muted my shit on purpose.
I didn't mute your shit. I even looked at it too.
What's up, bro? How you doing?
Good, good. How you been?
You know, just over here ready to have a stiff drink after trading this week. But
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna, I'm when the games start up, I'm just gonna sit in front of my computer, watch the games from the garage, and I'm gonna take those. I'm gonna jump on with you when you're doing the live betting on Bovado.
Mm-hmm.
Just do the bets with you, and then are we still moving over to Bitcoin, or what are we doing with that?
Well, yeah, and Bitcoin's held stable. I mean, Bitcoin is
Mm-hmm.
held really stable. I mean, I pay attention to it. I don't look at charts, but Bitcoin, the crazy drops, it stops dropping at 54. I mean, it dropped down to 52, but I had already taken the withdrawal. But yeah, I take the withdrawal every Monday, Money Monday, no matter what. Even if I have a losing week, I take money out and force myself to run it back up. I haven't made a deposit since 2018. Um, so it's Money Monday,
Nice.
and it's Bitcoin for sure. So if you see any wild swings coming, I'm happy to cash everything out.
Well, our next
What?
big resistance is going to be at 62K. Uh, it's it's definitely going to be a spot we need to pay attention to when it comes up. Once we get past 62K, and we'll worry about it then. But I'm expecting we see some resistance. We get a couple of shots at it. We already tried once, and we're just gonna keep our eye on 62K. That's the magic number.
Yep.
So
Um,
other than that,
and it looks
I would
like
say,
it looks like we find all kinds of support right around 54, 53, 54.
yeah, once we start getting under 50, then we might have a problem.
Well, when did Elon make that big purchase? Around 37, 38?
Yeah, well, it was in the 30s when we were in the 30s. Yeah. I'm sure he made it before that. It was announced then, so I'm sure he made that purchase probably somewhere in the 20s.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I'm still looking at Bitcoin at 100K by the end of this year. I know we got my big bear, Mr. Taco, on the line, and he thinks otherwise. And there's some things that he is 100% correct, that does look like has the potential to pull Bitcoin back down. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep keeping it bullish until it shows
Well,
me that it's bearish.
I mean, I'm not a charts guy, but just thinking about the logic behind Bitcoin it's there's too many institutions right now that are behind it. You can use PayPal with it. I mean, PayPal is a huge fintech system that there's no way around it. You have to be a part of it, whether you're Venmoing a buddy for pizza, and it's but at the same time, it's not stable enough for you to be able to use it as everyday currency at a grocery store.
Now wait a second. So now that's the part that just hasn't it hasn't made it to the doorstep in a lot of places in the US yet. In Europe, in the Middle East, there's
Mm-hmm.
actually a card and a coin that coincides with that card. And it has Visa logo on it, it has MasterCard logo on it, and you could use it pretty much tied to your wallet, your Bitcoin wallet, or certain coins, not all coins, but certain coins is tied to those, and you could swipe your card right in any store, mall, whatever, and it's gonna be like a Visa transaction, like on your credit card.
And it just
And
deducts. It debits that at the current Bitcoin rate.
yep, yep. And so now that actually happened a couple months ago. Well, last year that they started it in Europe. They have like Binance. Binance just started sending out the messages. I know Coinbase started sending out the messages for their cards that they're coming out with. So like you'll have a Binance card that has a Visa logo that your Binance wallet is tied to, and you can go swipe your card anywhere Visa is accepted.
Yeah.
And now the crazy thing about it is that I keep telling everybody who asks me about it, I said, hey, Google this for a second. Google, what is it, Bitcoin ATM machine near me. And the surprising thing is that people don't even understand. You can go into you can go to the gas station, and you can buy Bitcoin at the gas station, or you can withdraw your you can take cash from your wallet at the gas station from your
Yeah,
digital wallet.
that's pretty mainstream.
So now there's not a ton of them, but when I initially did this a year and a half ago, there was only about 2 or 3 of them, and
Yeah.
now there are about 10 of them over here. So
Yeah.
it,
That
and I was in travel in Jacksonville, and I just happened to walk into the gas station. The gas station had a huge fucking sign lit up and everything saying, "We accept Bitcoin," and a whole bunch of other shit. So
wow. Well, it's at least it's somewhat stable now. I mean, going from even when it drops, if it goes from 59 to 57 because of how much that I mean, because it's that high, that's not really even that. I mean, it's a 2% drop, a 1% drop. It's not as extreme as when it used to go from when it would go from $3,500 down to $2,800 in a matter of 3 days. I mean, that hurt.
yeah, but now you got to understand, like in the previous bull trend and the previous bull cycle that it had on the way up to 20, it was natural. It was okay for you to see 20 to 30% pullbacks on the way up.
Wow.
It happened multiple times over that year, and it still kept running all the way up to 19K the last time. So I'm sure we're going to see another pullback. The previous pullback that we had, that I called it was a reaccumulation phase. We're going to see a couple more of those, maybe like 2 or 3. But I still think it's a buy the dip situation with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I still watch it. So if you see anything coming on Monday, and if I benefit from waiting and buying the dip on Tuesday rather than on Monday, I'm perfectly happy with it. It's a safer place to play. Catch about 5%, 2%, whatever the percent is on the cash out just by cash, and that's always a good place to play.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, all right. Well, I got to get ready for this next recording. I'm gonna make sure. I don't know if you've watched them, but I've been calling out this page once or twice every single week, just trying to generate some new members if they're out there, or at least some interest. And we got people going into this cash tickets page, and they're paying. I mean, there's people every single week paying, and I'm sending them over 2 or 3 picks. John's sending them over picks. Like, I'm not getting rich off it, but I mean, there's a couple dozen people every single week that are paying for picks just off of the show. And when I'm sending them the message with the picks, I'm telling them, if you're in the market, check us out. And I send the link to them, and you make money during the week too.
No, I appreciate it. I definitely like. I actually like your you guys' videos, man. It's kind of funny. The older gentleman who's kind of like the narrator.
Yeah.
Per se.
Well,
funny guy.
It's his show, and it was a radio show, and it was ESPN in San Diego. He was on every single week. It was 10 o'clock Central, and he was on for 2 hours, and he was on for about 4 years. But it's Sports Betting Weekly, and the sponsor is Belly Up Sports, Belly Up Podcasts, and they have all kinds of different fantasy, and they got a bunch of different shows, and it's just sports related podcasts on their page. And then this show ends up on ESPN radio on the East Coast, but then these other guys that he goes on to a much bigger show. So it's actually his show. He's the sponsor, and he just brings brings John and I in as the know-it-alls.
I like it. I like it.
Good. Well, I'm doing it in 22 minutes, so you're certainly welcome to join, and I will give the page a shout. And if anybody needs anything during the week, let me know.
Too easy, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.